So at what point did you decide really to make the push on Facebook, and kind of what was your rationale in thinking at that point?
When did I make the push to be on Facebook?
Yeah, meaning the Trump campaign, the digital campaign in 2016.
Well, I think it started back in 2015. I mean, during the early portions of the primary, I would say a couple months out to Iowa, Jared Kushner and I were on the phone and we were having an open discussion about the possibilities of how we help him in Iowa and New Hampshire, how we help Donald Trump, get through the first early primaries. And we had good conversations about the Facebook Facebook would be a strong avenue to push this message. Now, the campaign we ran on Facebook in the primaries was much different than we ended up doing in the general election, but we had less budget then, we had a different goal. But however, we knew that Facebook, the audiences were there, the people were there, the people we needed to touch, and there was probably no better way to, per dollar, connect with them other than Facebook.
And so what was the primary, in the primary season, what was the strategy on Facebook, and how did it kind of shift going into 2016?
Shock and awe.
Shock and awe. How
Yeah.
so? What's that mean?
Which means is put Mr. Trump's message, let him speak directly to camera, and get it to as many people as possible.
And why was Facebook the ideal medium for that?
Low cost CPM, large numbers of conservative voters, ability to broadcast all day, multiple times to the same audience, and the numbers were showing in the consumer side that people were spending more and more hours of their day consuming Facebook content and aggregated newsfeed.
Meaning, what does that mean in less kind of technical terms, but in aggregated newsfeed, what does that, so people
Well, it means that there was, eyes are finite, right? So every day, so many people can only look and read so much stuff, right? That can never change. We can't add more of that. The only thing that can change is what that's viewing at. So people watch less TV, they read less newspapers, they want to read more internet content. Well, the force has been to read more aggregated content that is being fed together. There's only a few platforms that really aggregate content well together, Facebook being one of the best, probably the most diverse of all of them, where Twitter is like a kind of a wild, West show. Facebook was concentrated at the point of 2015, was probably the most aggregated or concentrated aggregation of content so people can understand what was really happening on the political landscape. So if you have any best place to show your content, it would be there.
So basically the fact that Facebook had in some sense become a source of news and information for voters was a big deal to you?
I don't know if it's about Facebook being this, a source of aggregated content. Yeah, it was a place where their eyes were. That's where they were reading their local newspaper, doing things. So being able to show a message directly from President Trump talking, or at that point Donald Trump, talking directly to camera was very important. I could get it right there, not filtered by the media, not filtered by anyone. It was his face. It was the person you wanted to hear from talking directly to you. And Facebook allowed long form video right into it from the ad platform directly into an aggregated news, or into a news that's aggregated from multiple fields. And so we could get our message injected inside that stream. And that was a stream which was controlling the eyeballs of most places that we needed to win.
And when you say shock and awe, do you mean that in that you were bombarding people with content?
Bombarding, yeah.
Or
it's not about what we were showing. It's not shock as in the type of content. It's the shock of here is a considerable amount of content to just continue to show them directly from the president or Donald Trump. And so I take shock and awe more just the military sense of let's just go and flood the zone. Unlike micro-targeting that took place in the general election, that capability wasn't available. You would need an unlimited amount of money to do that nationally. But for a single state like Iowa, the ability to flood the zone is much more capable at a much lower budget.
I mean, but in terms of shock and awe of content, I mean, one of the things, things go viral, right, on Facebook, and they're sort of playing to the algorithm and, of what's engaging content.
Yeah.
And was there thinking inside of the campaign that what's more engaging on Facebook, for instance, is more shocking content, more incendiary content?
No, it had nothing to do with incendiary content at all. What I mean is that Donald Trump speaking to the American people was a shock to the system. They have for so many years received a concentrated message that had been filtered by the media into what they were being told they needed to do. They were slowly being convinced that they needed to be something they weren't. And Donald Trump speaking directly to the camera and telling them this isn't how it has to be, that I'm a guy that can stop this, and we stop the pouring in of illegal immigrants. We could stop government fleecing your money. We can be more efficient with your tax dollars. That was the shock. It wasn't. The left wants you to believe that is something that was above and beyond. No, it was just a message different than theirs, and it was a message about a conservative voice. And he delivered that directly to them in large volume. And we didn't have to make anything. We just had to let Mr. Trump talk directly to camera, and they listened.
I mean, you know as well as anybody that Donald Trump was an unconventional candidate who said things that didn't appear scripted, that may have been a little bit more like, it may have been a message that was more...
more resonated with the people that actually wanted to hear it?
Well, maybe it's that, or maybe that it was more outrageous to some degree, and that it plays well on social media.
I'd say it's only outrageous to a few leftist media people who don't like that because they want to take the country a different direction.
I know, but are you telling me that inside of the campaign there wasn't thinking about what actually triggers the algorithm, what actually makes things go viral?
No.
That more,
No.
That wasn't thinking inside of the campaign at that point.
Nope.
So
it was to sell Donald Trump's message. He has never changed his message to equal an algorithm.
Right, but does it work in the advantage? I mean, I'm just wondering, because you know how social media works,
Yep.
right? And you know what the algorithm favors: content that's engaging,
Yep.
favors content that is emotional to some degree. So you're saying that the messaging of the campaign did not play on that in any
Well,
way?
it did, because the American people, the reason why it went viral is because people were seeking that message. That's what they wanted to hear. They wanted to hear someone said they would drain the swamp. They wanted to hear someone that wasn't playing to this media left. And what happened in this country and why Donald Trump's rise to being president of the United States was Americans wanted to hear someone talk to them direct. They didn't want to hear any more that I could laundry list 1,000 things. They didn't want to be spoon-fed anymore. They wanted to hear it directly from the person, and that's why it went viral. He didn't have to do anything, and there was never any content we put up, and there's never been a single screenshot of anything that's ever been taken, with millions and millions and hundreds of millions and almost billions of views, because we never put anything up like that. It was Donald Trump talking to camera through the primaries.
When you say never put anything up, like what? What did
I
you
don't
put
know.
up?
Like, there's been a lot of accusations that we somehow put something up that was it was incendiary or in some way that like caused problems. We just never put anything like that up.
One of the things that's interesting is that back in 2016, digital advertising was kind of a dark space, right? Especially on Facebook. It was there could be no public scrutiny of what political ads were on there. Only Facebook basically knew what was being advertised on its
That's not
platform.
true.
How is that not true?
Because if you run an ad for $5 and your 5 friends share it, all their friends share it. So there is no hidden dark post. Dark posts are only hidden from your profile page, not hidden from the world.
Right, they're hidden from the work, but there's the only place that actually has full visibility into what was advertised online at that point on Facebook was Facebook, correct?
Other than maybe the 100 million people that saw all the ads.
Was it in any way seen as an opportunity or the chance to experiment in that with different messaging, for instance, that there wouldn't be, I mean, granted people could share, right? And
Yeah.
I get that, but the rules are very different and the game is very different than on TV. A lot more people see it, it's exposed
It's
to the
not
public
actually true.
more.
It's actually less. If I run an ad in only Eastern Washington on a local DMA, who else sees it? Only people in the Eastern DMA of Washington, right?
Right.
So if I run a Facebook ad in that same DMA and they share it with people in LA, who just saw it more? I could give you all that. Mail, same way, less shared. Actually, social media dark posting is the most shared of all ad platforms when you choose a singular DMA.
So you think there's a bigger opportunity for public scrutiny of what's being advertised during a political campaign?
From social media? Yeah, 100%. The difference is that when the left saw that we use it so well, they panicked and thought that somehow we twisted people's minds, which didn't happen. It's because they couldn't explain it because they once lost control. That's the beauty of the internet, because the ads could be shared, because it was so open, it allowed it to expand and to become a movement. It's the actual opposite of what they want to believe.
And what do you make of the fact that, how does it change your strategy going into 2020? The fact that Facebook's changed some of its policies about For instance, they're going to now
Show all the ads?
Yeah, show all the ads.
It'll just save me a bunch of money because now everybody gets to see my ads for free.
So it doesn't hamstring you in any way in terms of what ads you want to show to what people.
No. It just lets other people see my ads for free. I mean, it's kind of like a gift.
And all right, getting back to the transition from the primary to the general, what were you thinking about using Facebook and the power of Facebook targeting tools going into the general?
So after the primary is over, at the general, I recognized that the same tactics weren't going to work. Not the fact that it was something different and odd, it was just the fact is to do the same thing and to flood the entire United States with ads, Facebook isn't going to work. I mean, you're going to need $200 billion. Who knows what you would need to control, put that many ads to that many people, right? It's just not going to work. So we recognize that we really just need to show the ads to the right people at that point. So that's where micro-targeting comes in. Micro-targeting allows you to do is to upload custom audiences of people and say, well, these are the people that are most likely to show up, and these are the right audiences we need to show up. So we recognize that in a little over 10 to 15 million people. I think it was about 14 million people in some audiences, and we recognize those ads. Now, were those ads only shown to those 14 million people? No, they were shown to like 100 million people. The reason is all those people, millions of people shared it with all their friends. But most likely, friends tend to be in friends that are groups like themselves. So the other people who are seeing that tend to be the people who we also want to have vote for Donald Trump. That's the beauty of Facebook, right? So friends usually run in similar packs. That's not always 100% guaranteed, but that's just how it happens. So
that's based. I mean, running in similar packs is like basically a filter bubble. Is
no. I'm just saying that friends usually, if you're a liberal person, you usually have 5 liberal friends. If you're a conservative living in the Midwest, you usually have 5 Midwest conservative friends. So I'm just saying, when you pick up your original customer audience, 14 million people, and you show them ads, and if they share them, most likely they're sharing them with people who are more similar to them, because people usually have friends that are more similar. Well, that's just an inherent, psychology thing. People live in rural areas or city people, things like that. But the audiences themselves were chosen through the Republican National Committee's data they'd been building over 6 years to try to make sure that they had the right data for the 2016 election. And during that period of time, they were able to start to hone in on who and what people would need to show up to vote. And I was able to then onboard that into Facebook and then show our audience, and then test and relearn ads and see what would perform best with these people, mainly through fundraising and GOTV.
So slow that down for me a little bit, because it's really important. I just want to basically understand the mechanism of what you were doing. So before we get to that, did you see right away going into the general election that Facebook was going to be the primary tool for you guys?
Yes, I knew that back in 2015.
So how is it that you then actually start to ramp that up? Bring me through the process of getting the data from the RNC. How does that whole thing work?
Well, I think first of all, I don't know if I could do that in just this interview.
Okay.
I don't mean that negatively. I just mean that's a very long question of 2 years worth of work. In essence, what I recognized was, the simple process of marketing. I needed to find the right people in the right places and show them the right message. So the start of that was to break down what Trump's messages were, which he had made very public between tweets, videos, interviews, and speaking with him in person, and break that down into what are our main shelves of content, or our strongest points to help him win. Match that with the right people. Who are the people that are going to best write with these audiences? Then match that with the right places they live so that their votes matter the most. Do that math in reverse order, then produce as much content you as, show them that, and if it works and they react to it, donate, say they're going to vote, share it, then you've created positive content. If they don't do that, then you go back and you retweak the content to show it in a way that allows them to react to it the way you want. And people will say that's a different complete ad. No, that ad change might just be the difference of showing him standing up, pointing, versus him sitting down. It might be the word you use for the call to action. It could be a lot of things that could cause people to react. Anyone that believes they can, anecdotally just decide that because the gut was once they made an ad and people looked at it, it's the wrong way to do it. We use data and machine learning to learn which ads work better and then perform back to that. So it wasn't like it was an alarming amount of intelligence to know what audiences were. The idea is to produce the right content, and I had the best candidate in the world to do that.
In terms of creating the audience and the data that you were bringing, explain how that process actually works in terms of the RNC data and what is actually a custom audience. What is it like to interact with Facebook?
So this is probably one of the most underreported and misreported things. The data comes in, there's there's companies, I don't know if they're public or private companies, but there are companies out there that sell data. This is consumer data. They'll sell whatever they can scrape and find about you within American law, whatever those corporations can do, and they sell access to that. Then every state in the United States, through different Secretary of State laws, provide voter data. How and when certain things, different states have different rules of how and what data they share for voting. Most of it's pretty similar, but yes, some make it easier than others and some make it more difficult and all this stuff. And the RNC scrapes all that. Both DNC and RNC do this. They scrape all that voter file data. All that data file goes back into a data. You match that with consumer data. And then you have a giant environment of data that's out there in the world. You have polling data. So you have thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people across the United States running for party offices, from mayors to city council members to state party to state senate to state congress to state representative, to actual senators and representatives and governors and all these people, right? And all of them hired pollsters. All of them hired people to go out and find data. The real trick of it is how do you get all that data and all that information, all those people are answering about all those important questions, and you drive them all back into a central database. So when you decide you're going to run for president of the United States, now you have hard match data with consumer data, matched with voter history, matched with very comprehensive polling data from all over the country. When you do that, you put that into a machine, and then you start to learn. What you start to learn is how people react in areas, people, and individualize, what they're called hard ID'd. Hard IDs then are matched with phone numbers, email addresses, and everything. By the time all those pieces are put together, then you can actually pull out an audience. You can say, I want to find everybody in this portion of Ohio that believes that the wall needs to be built, that thinks that possibly that trade reform needs to happen, and so we want to show them a job on trade and immigration. So then you take that, you export it out into Excel file, very simple. You import it into Facebook with PII in it, which is personal information that's matchingable data, addresses, phone numbers, whatever you have, and Facebook has been in the job of scraping that all from you, and then it just matches them. And then you have a little button on your computer that says that audience, and you can use that for all your ads.
You can, it's the ultimate targeting tool then.
I
don't know. You tell me.
It's no different than sending a mail.
So you mentioned earlier, you said the beauty of Facebook, right? So what is the beauty of Facebook
Speed.
then?
It's the speed of doing the same thing we've already been able to do. Facebook isn't doing anything else that you haven't got through mail, phone, and TV for 100 years. You've been able to find out what you are at home for 50 years of politics, send you a mailer with a custom message on it, mail it to you, get you to call a phone number, get you to donate. That's been like that. You've been able to buy DMAs. What's addressable TV? Addressable TV is no different also. You can pick a TV commercial in this household different than the one next door. Those are TV commercials that are doing that. You've had targeted emails for over 2 decades now. You've had people call you on your phone that sell you solar panels by selling your neighbor a water heater because they think you need different things. Targeted marketing has existed for as long as there's been marketing. They put a billboard on one highway next to you when they know you live in that neighborhood versus one that's downtown that might sell something completely different. Why? That's targeted advertising. The difference with Facebook is the only thing that was different was the speed in which you could do it. Meaning you could show them one ad that afternoon and change the ad by the night. A billboard, now you have no digital billboards, you can almost do that now, but everyone's just trying to speed up that, and Facebook was the fastest and had the most eyeballs.
Okay, so how many ads a day were you creating?
Tons. We made, I think, over 5.9 million ads between convention and general election and election day.
And what was the approval process for those ads? How did it go through Facebook approval processes? What were the standards in place?
You would have to ask Facebook exactly what those approval processes. I'm not privy to what they were in there. They have their own process of how they approve ads.
But were you,
I approved ads, and I had staff. Once ads became evergreen, then they would be run more. But we might write 50,000 ads that only have very, very small nuances changed about them. Maybe what the call to action is versus, but like let's say if we're selling a hat, buy versus have versus give, red versus green versus blue. I would say there was only a couple, 1,000 root narratives to all the ads.
And to your knowledge, were any ads ever rejected by Facebook?
Oh, I'm sure, but they probably weren't rejected on they reject ads on how big the word was over a picture. They have 1,000 reasons they reject ads. I don't think we had any ads rejected for messaging though.
The Facebook employees that were embedded with the Trump campaign, what were they doing?
So in essence, it's like this. I asked Facebook, I'm going to spend $100 million on your platform. Send me a manual. They say, we don't have a manual. I said, well, send me a human manual then. And that's pretty much it. I wanted a human manual in my office.
And what does the manual provide?
Well, yes, a manual. You have a manual for your car. I say, how do I open the doors? Where's the door lock? I can't find it. I've always wondered how I change the oil in here. I don't know where the oil cap is. You look in the manual. If you didn't have that for your car, there might be things you would never learn how to use in your car, right? And you might not be using your car as efficiently as it can be. Maybe there's a secret button you push that makes the fuel efficiency 5 mile an hour button. You never knew that button was there. If you didn't have the manual, then there. Well, you'd say the guy at the car dealership would tell you, well, he's a human manual then. Well, he doesn't tell you either. So how do you know how to push that button? So I wanted a human manual to tell me what buttons am I not knowing.
And what did you learn from the Facebook employees?
I mean, I'm sure they taught us all kinds of stuff. It wasn't just me, it was my staff. So that they would sit there and be a human manual. And so if we needed to get something done, or also an on-call mechanic, things break. When you're using a platform, $100 million, and you're pushing it for everything it can do, it breaks also. You might wake up one morning and just the API doesn't work the way it did yesterday because somebody pushed some code. And they can pick up a phone in 5 seconds. I didn't want to lose 5 seconds. If I would have chose the way Hillary's campaign did it, I'd have to send an email, make a phone call, wait a couple days, and then have it fixed. I wanted it fixed in 30 seconds.
So what other sorts of things specifically, I mean, if you're able to talk about it, what other sorts of things specifically were the Facebook employees helping with? I mean,
that's it. They were a manual and they were there to be a technician.
But in terms of like audience targeting, were they helping with that?
No, they would only help if maybe the custom audience tool didn't work. The Facebook employees were helping us use their platform, but they weren't helping us make decisions on the campaign. I spent $100 million on a platform, the most in history. It made sense for them to be there to help us make sure how we spent it right and they did it right. I think it's insane if you're going to go ask somebody to spend $100 million on a platform and you don't ask anyone to be there. I think that's just crazy.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just wondering, I mean, for instance, one question is the ad approval process. Did they help with getting ads approved quickly?
I would imagine if we got one locked up, maybe through reasons that they might call in and say, hey, why was this one? So they can tell us. I don't think they would have rammed something through, but you'd have to ask those employees. My guess is they would be there in case the ad approval process broke down. They would be there to call in and say, hey, why is this broken? I don't know if, I would doubt the employees we had in our office would have the ability to manually approve ads.
And what was their data good for you in terms of like how obviously
Lookalike audiences?
So explain how that works. What is
Well, if you upload an audience to say 300,000 people, you can click a button and then it'll find people who look like those 300,000 people. Facebook does that for every commercial vendor in the country. So if you needed to expand the custom audience and maybe say, hey, maybe Facebook has some people that look like this that we don't know, then you could like say, hey, I really need a 600,000 person audience. I only know 300,000. Upload to 300,000 and see what Facebook, how well it can find people. And then the testing would allow us to see if that was accurate or not.
How accurate was it?
Facebook lookalike audiences are pretty amazing. I mean, it's why the platform's great. Now that's probably one advantage over a mailer because the U.S. Postal Service doesn't tell you that. The TV channels will do that, some, the addressable TV and some of them. But that's probably, the lookalike audience is probably one of the most powerful features of Facebook.
You're describing a very powerful tool, obviously a very coordinated, well-run campaign. I mean, during 2016, we know that other actors, bad actors, were using the same tools that the Trump campaign was using. I mean, do you think that Facebook bears any responsibility for the fact that bad actors were also using these powerful tools to mess with the American electorate?
You know, it's a complicated question. I mean, I would think that Facebook would probably want to verify it's who's running ads first. I think once they verified them, then I think the burden changes some. You know, it's like you can't, you know, it's even the United States government can't and police force can't manage every single person, every human, every second, right? It's an impossible task for anything, especially something as big as Facebook. You know, could they have maybe question why a Russian company with Russian IP addresses are buying ads on a platform. Sounds kind of, suspicious to me also. You know, maybe it was just a little amount of money they spent that it just went under the radar. $6,000 or whatever is the last 6 weeks or whatever, 8 weeks. I mean, I was spending that per half second or millisecond probably. So if you take that over 6 weeks, I mean, they were spending 0.00001 cents per second. So, I mean, I could get how maybe it fly under the radar. I think they'll do a better job now, though, of probably verifying initial ad vendors. And so this problem doesn't go away. But I would imagine it's more to do with the small amount of money they spent. If they would have came and spent $100 million and they said they were going to, or they even started to spend that kind of money, I would imagine. I think one of Facebook's biggest mistakes is they were in a conflict of marketing versus ethics. So to actually explain to everybody that $6,000 in ads really wasn't doing much also makes you sound like your platform's not that powerful to do something for cheap. So if you want to get rid of every small vendor that's using your platform in America, go on TV and say, well, that actually isn't very much. So Facebook was caught in a catch-22 to say Russia couldn't do a lot with that little amount of money, or whoever these actors were. Also says that all the small businesses across America, you can't actually do something effective for that little amount of money. So they were kind of caught in a little paradox. So what they've almost said is, yeah, 100,000 and 100 million are the same thing. Well, even 100,000, $6,000. They only spent like less than $10,000 for the same period of time that I spent 100 million.
Have you been satisfied with Facebook's response to kind of interference on their platform during the 2016
I think
election?
of all the platforms, Facebook has done the best job, I think, of trying to even the playing field. I think they were a PR disaster. But I think they're trying to do some things. I think they're also now so worried they're going too far, and I think it's one of the problems also. I think owning that the situation happened and, make some changes to make sure it doesn't happen again, I guess, would probably be the best way to do it.
But do you feel like there's been a proper accounting of what actually went on Facebook during 2016?
I'm not, no one's ever given me that information.
Well, I mean, do you presumably you're well read in on what...
I mean, only what I see in the public, but, by the way, though, I don't believe everything I read anymore, since 90% of the stuff that's written about me is false, so it's hard to believe what everybody else is once you've had it happen to you.
Do you think that Facebook has any responsibility for the fact that no one knows what to believe anymore because it's fake news on their platform that's spread around, or that there's...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, CNN's on Facebook every day too, and I would tell you that half the stuff that comes out of CNN's fake, so why does Facebook still allow CNN on there?
But you personally, do you think that do you think that we know all we should know as the American public about what happened on Facebook, this really important medium for both content and for advertising to American, voters? Do you think we have the complete picture of what happened there?
I don't know. I think that a lot's come out. I mean, the problem is, again, Americans don't understand how the system works, and they think that this was some huge thing. I explain it like this: if you took, Madison Square Garden and you said that was a salad, and you had to eat the whole thing, and you took 3 pieces of salt and you put it in the very top of that, like literally table salt, and then ate that whole thing, and if you could say that you tasted that, then I think that's about what's happened.
And who are the 3 pieces of salad?
No, I'm just saying the whole bowl of salad is all Facebook during the election campaign, all the noise that was happening. And from what I've read, it's like putting 3 pieces of salt on it is how much these actors put into the system. And to say that influenced that entire bucket of salad's flavor is crazy to me. And until someone shows me a piece of evidence that shows it wasn't 3 pieces of salt, it was dump trucks worth of salt, I'm going to think it was 3 pieces of salt inside a giant salad bowl inside of Madison Square Garden, that you're never going to taste it.
So as far as I know, Facebook has not released all of the repository of advertising that happened on their platform during 2016, whether it was by the Russians or the Trump campaign or any other actors who were...
Well, Trump campaign's not an actor. Trump campaign's the official campaign.
Understood,
for the president.
but dark money groups or anyone else...
Those are also, if you're talking about super PACs and C4s and all those things, that's part of the current political system. But the only thing that's been accusatory is what these actors did from this internet research company or whatever. It's the only one I know about and the only one I've read about. And what I've read about is during the last couple months of the campaign, there was only a fraction of money spent, well less than 100,000, somewhere down under $10,000 range. There's been different accounts of how much that is. Some saying 6,000, some saying 8,000. But the fraction of that, of probably what was spent on Facebook, was probably close to 500 to 600 million in the United States by legitimate organizations. And to try to say that that 500 or 600 million, that $6,000 somehow influenced 600 million is the biggest piece of just malarkey I've ever heard.
Even though Facebook is actually a very effective targeting tool.
Yeah, they can't say that though, because it would say, that's like saying a restaurant goes and puts $5,000 from some restaurant in Wichita, Kansas, puts $5,000, and all of the world the next day is going to know how great that restaurant is from $5,000 in advertising. It just doesn't happen. It's not possible. I don't understand it. And if someone shows me the proof that somehow it influenced somebody, I haven't seen it. But I think the media wants you to believe it because they want to believe that somehow none of this is legit, that these guys somehow faked everybody out for $6,000. And I think it's a big joke. I mean, I can barely fly from here to Hawaii and back for $6,000. I'm not going to change the entire American electorate for it.
You also know how Facebook works, and it's not just advertising, it's also organic content in groups,
Yep.
and that there's clear evidence that the Russians and the Internet Research Agency were creating a lot of organic content that had a lot of reach.
I have not seen a lot of that content. There's been a few posts about that. They would have to make a lot of friends of real people and to really create a lot of influence. I think it'd be a considerable amount of work. I haven't seen that evidence that have had any kind of real, that influence any person's vote. I just haven't seen it.
The Trump campaign paid Cambridge Analytica nearly $6 million.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you get for that money?
Well, $5 million, that was a TV buy. So you got to wipe off $5 million. Steve Bannon made a purchase of TV advertising that ran on the East Coast. They have a television division where they literally just place television. They were paid, I think, approximately around $800,000. We received staff. The reason I hired Cambridge Analytica was actually not for Cambridge Analytica at all. I didn't know about their company. I didn't know anything about them. They had hired some of the Scott Walker digital team in 2015. These were the guys that had really helped Scott Walker re-elect. And there was a guy named Matt Iskowski. When I met Cambridge, I thought they were full of crap. But I met Matt Iskowski and I really liked him. He had experience running a very well-targeted and well-run digital campaign. I actually wanted to hire him without Cambridge, and he said, I'm under contract. So I asked him for an employment contract. And so I hired them for staff only. And each one of the payments between then and election day were for staff only. And then Matt worked on my team with 4 or 5 of his people. And they mainly ran polling, visualization, and support staff to all the things we needed to do to, get things done digitally. I actually didn't hire Cambridge Analytica for any data work, or to hire them for any other data.
Do you regret any affiliation with Cambridge Analytica?
Hindsight's 2020 now. I don't regret because I'm sitting here today and Donald Trump's president, so I'm not going to regret that decision. It's sad what Cambridge Analytica executives did, but I barely knew them, didn't even have anything really contact with them. And from the day I hired them till after the day after the election, I actually never talked to any of those guys.
I mean, what do you make of the fact that they used the same tool, Facebook? One, they have user data on people that they got unethically from Facebook, and then they target. What do you make of the fact that these types of companies are running, in some cases, disinformation campaigns using Facebook?
I have no idea what those guys do. It's not anything I do. Nothing we did on the Trump campaign. I can't. Who knows what people do out there in the world? There's billions of people out there, and I couldn't tell you what they all do.
I mean, does it piss you off though that there are probably some of the same voters that you were targeting were also targeted by groups that were spreading misinformation or disinformation?
I was completely upset that Hillary Clinton was putting misinformation to my people about what she was going to do.
Like what?
I'm just saying. I mean, Hillary was, in their campaign, put out lots of things they said they were going to do and misinformation about President Trump. So, that's a political campaign. A political campaign, you take your position, you stay strong with it. And the Clinton campaign put out tons of stuff that was not true about Donald Trump and who President Trump is. So, I think that to try to say that conservatives and Republicans were somehow trying to use Facebook in an organized manner to be misinformation is crazy. I didn't have anything part of that. Our campaign didn't have anything part of that. I would actually say we ran the least amount of negative ads I've ever seen in a presidential campaign. We ran almost all positive. We had some contrast ads to different things of statements she made. But for the most part, we just tried to get our people to show up.
What were your favorite targets? I mean, in terms of demographics, income.
I would say we had a few different targets that were very important. I would say one was low propensity to turn out Trump voters. I mean, you had a lot of Trump people that are Trump supporters that maybe only showed up one or two last of the 4 elections. Not because they didn't care about this country or they loved it, they're just working, middle class Americans who, on that day, their kid has basketball camp, or their kid, they pick 3 kids up from school, and it's like, I don't have time to get over there. A lot of people live hour to hour, paycheck to paycheck in this country, and some of them struggle just to put food on the table. And sometimes the thought of getting out to vote feels disconnected for them. And I think the idea was, for one, major audiences was for Trump to connect to those people and show them that he had a plan to help them and that he could bring real change. Not this, you're going to feel better about yourself change, but the economy's not going to get better and you're not going to get any better, but we're going to make you feel better change. Donald Trump brought change that was going to make their lives better. And that's what we wanted to get. And so that was one of the most important audiences. I think after that was an audience of people, of Republicans, who didn't like that they were losing their establishment hold on control. Those were the Republicans that had showed up to vote every time and were unhappy because they felt if all these new voters show up, they would lose their influence over the party. That's the power group, I call them. And that was another audience. We needed to get them convinced to show up, because they didn't show up. Hillary was in power, and that was worse than the other situation for them. So that was another audience. Those were probably 2 main audiences that you had to show up to vote. And they were in slightly in conflict back then together. I think things have changed now.
Wait, those audiences were in conflict, or no?
Well, I'm saying those people are.
Yeah.
I'm saying the one didn't like the new ones were showing up. The other new ones didn't like the establishment ones.
Right.
So we needed them both to vote for the same guy because they didn't really want the other one. And so that's a binary choice there slightly. They're both Republicans. They both actually believe in the same plan. They just, one believes in a methodology of lifelong Republican swamp-like, and the other one believed in a guy that was coming to bring change and would attack a Republican just as much as a Democrat if it stopped real change for these middle-class voters.
And what was your what were the most successful negative advertisements you guys did?
We really didn't run a lot of digital negatives. We probably ran some. We ran some TV advertisements that were negative. I think it was about her being in an establishment for 30 years, that it was going to be the same. And I think the most successful campaigns we ran against her were probably that it was 8 years, it would be 4 more years of the same from Obama, and all that time things hadn't changed for them and gotten better. And if you want 4 more years of that, vote for that. And I think that was probably the most successful campaigns we ran.
There's been reports that you targeted to some degree African American zip codes.
Bloomberg articles.
Yeah. So
we didn't run any kind of suppression and/or campaigns in any way that ran to. I don't think we didn't run on a campaign. I believe I would say I'm nearly 100% sure we did not run any campaigns that targeted even African Americans, which people think is crazy. We individualized this campaign instead of segmenting that way. Meaning we were, I don't assume that an African American and a white person are different because they live in the same neighborhood. I would take what they do and how they consume information, the things they buy, the jobs they have be more important than the color of their skin. So I didn't see that as a choice that I needed to do.
Right, but there's one thing about targeting on ethnicity, and it's another thing to target zip codes that might be predominantly African American.
I don't think we targeted by zip codes.
No?
I targeted by individualized. So micro-targeting is not zip codes.
Okay. So explain the difference for me then.
Well, zip codes would be assuming that everyone in a zip code is the same. I didn't do that. All of our customer audiences were by the person. So the consumer history, voter history, polling data all match back. Now, are certain information from demographics and geographics probably built somewhere into those models? I would imagine so, somewhere in the underlying belly, but we didn't say, hey, let's just go target this zip code with this kind of message. That's just not how we did it. Our custom audiences are imported. They would be state-based, would probably be the main geography, because I need people in Ohio vote for us. I'm not looking for people in Nebraska. Well, I had Nebraska one zone, but let's take Oklahoma. Like, there was no custom audiences with Oklahoma people in it, right? So states matter because we're an electoral system and not a popular vote system, right? So, but no, we didn't target like that. That was an anonymous source that gave that. I don't know who that anonymous source was, and I've been saying I never did that since.
So you completely, it's completely false that African American voters in Pennsylvania were targeted with ads about Hillary's record with super predators?
Yeah, well, I don't think we ever ran the super predator. We had, I guess, one of my staff members, we told them to be creative, make whatever they wanted, and then we would say no or yes to things. I guess this reporter thinks he saw an ad that was an ad where she was talking about being a super predator. I don't think we actually ever run the super predator ad. I do think we ran radio ads with her saying that in certain DMAs. I don't think we ever ran social media ads like that. It is something she said. It's something that she said that I believe is extremely racist, and we did run it. It's something she said. We didn't actually say anything to it. We just ran what she said on radio.
Do you have any concerns about the nature of the targeting, just regardless of the Trump campaign, but just how this tool, right, which is clearly a very powerful tool with all of the data that there is out there about voters and individuals, coupled with this, what Facebook offers. Do you have any
Zero.
reservations about?
Zero. The reason why is I can't stop somebody from mailing me. I can't stop somebody from calling me, but I can turn off Facebook.
And do you think, the ability to, there's no difference between the fact that you could have run in 2016 an ad to one person and the message could have been completely different to another person?
No, because when you get on Facebook, that's what you're buying. So why are you on Facebook? Facebook's product is to get on and get information that's targeted to you so that you can simplify your life. And then you get on there and they show you ads that are simplified to you, and then you're upset with them. It seems pretty hypocritical to me. So you don't have to use Facebook. There's no law that says you have to be on it. You have to have a mailing address. Most of us have to have a phone to survive. But there is no rule that says you have to have Facebook. And when you simply sign up, it says you're going to be targeted with ads for usage of this platform. And then people are now upset that that's what it did.
Do you think it was clear in 2016 that there was a substantive difference in a Facebook feed between ads and content?
It says ad on it.
And sponsored content?
It says sponsored.
And you think that an American voter is going to know the difference between that?
Yeah, I will tell you what's worse is you open up the Wall Street Journal, or you actually, even worse, you open the New York Times. Do you know the difference between an opinion piece and a news piece?
Yeah, you do.
Really?
Yeah, sure. There's an op-ed page, there's an editorial page.
Online,
Yeah,
there's one word underneath their title that says opinion. What's the difference between the one word that says sponsored?
I think that people know that first of all, it's not, if you look back to how things were done in 2016.
60% of the content now on major newspapers and on major outlets now are opinion pieces. 30 years ago, it was less than like 10%. Mm-hmm. We have turned into an entire media company, a media outlet system that is mainly on opinion and commentary instead of news. So you turn on any major news media tonight and you watch it, and you consume how much of it's commentary and how much of it's news. That has flipped. I think that what has happened.
Well, the news industry would say in response to that
it's what makes them money.
Well, it's the only way to get engagement on the Facebook.
To make money.
On the Facebook platform, because what engages people when Facebook is your news source is opinion and is polarizing.
I would say what the Trump campaign put up online was 100 times more real than all the news articles that were put up.
Are you serious?
Serious.
In what way?
Because I would read the articles and they were false, one after another, because I actually was in the room. I was with him. I listened to him. I was in all the meetings, and piece after piece after piece was full of anonymous sources, single source content, fake stories over and over again every day. every day. It's why I record this conversation. It's why everything I do now, I have to think that everyone's going to do something fake against me.
There were also troll farms, or there were also, kids in Macedonia whose articles, that fake articles about candidate Trump at the time, or about fake articles about Hillary Clinton at the time, were going viral on Facebook, right? Yeah. That were getting more play than articles from the New York Times.
I don't know how much play all those got. To make the argument that those kids in Macedonia made more impact than the New York Times is insane.
I mean, I think that the numbers bear out that the fact that some of those articles got shared a lot more than a New York Times article.
Yeah, I think you could go back in time and take lots of conspiracy theories and weird things that made a lot of, like JFK, 9/11. I mean, you want to go to all of them? We can just go back. I mean, there was no social media at JFK, and it was. Can you imagine one American that doesn't know what that conspiracy theory is? So, I think that humans naturally are mesmerized by conspiracy theory because when they can't answer something they don't believe should have happened, or they don't understand why it's happening. So they have to inherently put structure to any thought process, right? Uh-huh. So I think they naturally read these things. Sometimes they want to believe them and the people who want to believe them the most are the people that don't like you the most. And so, or those who do believe you like you the most. I'm still yet to convince that independent voters and swing voters are consuming a considerable amount of that stuff. I think that noise has been there for as long as human history has been. There's been satire magazines. There has been content produced for millennials, or millenniums. It's like however long we've been creating this content. That's probably a long word. Centuries, right? Of content that's been created, right? That's like that is designed to confuse people and to be entertainment. Who knows why people create it? I just think it's existed forever. And I think that to ask for a platform to control that 100%, only ask for one thing, to block free speech. I think the reason why we have free speech in our Constitution is it's on no one but yourself to determine what's right and wrong. And anytime you try to stop something, what happens when you stop the wrong one the one time? And that's the reason why we have free speech.
It's one thing to say for them to stifle speech. It's another thing if the system that they've created, that Facebook has created, rewards content that is engageable, not necessarily true, right? Or engaging and not necessarily true. So,
well, if people don't want to see that, then they shouldn't get on Facebook. I mean, it's a free country. It's a free country to make a platform the way you want to do it. It's a free country to say the things you want to say. Do I think there should be anything on there that hurts people? No. Now that's always where that thin line gets to get, But I also think there's a lot of conservative voices in this country that actually have real messages they believe, and I don't think are fake, that they believe, whether that's religious conservatism, whether that's social conservatism, whether it's whatever they believe, it doesn't make it fake. It doesn't make it painful. It doesn't make it hurtful. Do I think there are people who do stuff like that? Yes. Do I think white, supremacy groups should be on there? Hell no. I completely am disgusted by anything that has anything to do with that. But it's a very thin line. You have to be very careful to try to block it. And I think when you do that, you set yourself up for a much bigger problem. And I think that's censorship. And if you go back to early European times and you go to any time, people start taking away your guns, they start taking away your voice, that's when problems happen.
There's more of an opportunity for opacity of who's advertising and how they're targeting people.
Well, do you know everybody's advertising in Des Moines, Iowa right now?
I don't, but there's a way for me to find out, right? There's ways to find out that are much more public than having to ask Facebook for that data.
Well, that's not what you said. You didn't say that there is a aftermarket services that are greater at doing that. The TV networks, there's aftermarket services now because they recognize that they've made it a business to try to sell what all the different commercials are and monitor them all. So what I'm saying is somebody could easily done that with Facebook too. Facebook now is just saying they're going to do it themselves. But there is nothing different of me sending 50,000 ads on Facebook. You say the question is, do you feel like there's a certain amount of hidden, or not opaque, to showing those ads? And I said, no, that's not different than me mailing 50,000 people. I actually think it's more because the odds of taking those 50,000 people and actually showing people your mail before they read it and throw it away, I would actually say the chance of these 50,000 people sharing it was much higher. So you're saying there's actually things you can do that are much more micro-targeted, that are much more hidden if you wanted to. And to say that Facebook had created a system that somehow is a secret evil thing is a very incorrect statement. The only reason anyone's upset about this is that Donald Trump is president and used a system that was all built by liberals.
I mean, I disagree with that. And
No one ever complained about Facebook for a single day until Donald Trump was president.
No, that's not true. There were plenty of people that were raising warnings about the idea that this is a completely unregulated digital
It went from
advertising
1%
space.
to 99%.
I just
When I got on TV and
Yeah.
told everybody after my interview of what we did with Facebook, it exploded. Then when Cambridge, did their stupid thing with whatever they did with data, which had nothing to do with our campaign, then people even exploded more. The funny thing is, the Obama campaign downloaded the entire social graph, and used it. Then went on TV and newspapers, and they put it on the front of a magazine, and the left and the media called them geniuses for doing that.
Yeah, but there were also people that had major qualms with that, no matter
Do
what your
not
political
see
persuasion.
do you not see the hypocrisy that the difference is that this other company gets the social graph, does the same thing. By the way, the same time period, it's now 4 years old, didn't even get used on a presidential campaign, and they need to testify. These people are put on Wired magazine as the geniuses that brought you Obama. These people are said they're the evil of Earth, and they did the exact same thing.
Well, they didn't do
They
the
both,
exact same
these
thing.
guys downloaded the entire social graph.
Right, they did, but they got permission from Facebook to do so, and Cambridge Analytica did not.
Okay, but why in 2000, in his reelection, why would one media outlet attack them and say what they did was wrong, that they got in people's, they didn't.
I'd say there was a big failing.
It's because they wanted Obama.
It's
The media wanted Obama.
That may be your interpretation. I think that
Well, I mean,
this is not about.
I'm not
This
used-
is,
it's
this
a-
is no.
it's-
This is more about corporate accountability than it is about our political persuasions here. I think this is about the fact that there was data.
I think it was wrong they both did it.
Right. That's different.
I think they're both wrong to do it. I don't think Facebook should. I had never openly used a social graph for anything. I've never imported that and used it for any of my political and or commercial stuff that I had ever done.
Why not?
I don't know. First of all, I don't think it works. And I think content's more important than that. Secondly, I don't know. I never really thought it was worth the effort. And the second thing is, I don't know if it's actually wrong if Facebook says that's the rules and people understood it. I do think it's wrong if people didn't know they were having that done to them. And I do think the place that Facebook was really sketchy probably was they didn't let people know how their social graph could be exported. I don't even know if back then I knew when I used Facebook exactly what they were sucking in. It was years ago. This data is like 4 or 5 years old, I think now, right? I think it's almost 6 years old now.
Right.
They shut that down back in like 13 or 14.
Right. There's a federal consent order against Facebook for having shared that data.
I never think anyone should ever have taken anything from them that they don't know is being done. I do think that Facebook does have an inherent thing that they're using your data to better serve you, though. Now, sharing that is a different problem. But I don't understand why the Obama campaign didn't get lit up for doing it. If everyone's so upset about it, it seems to be in the appearance from a third-party view of my own that because it was used for what they thought was good purpose, that made it fine. It goes back to the same liberal argument that raising energy prices is fine as long as we get to a greener world or we do all these things. That damage is okay as long as it's for our political purpose. And so it looks like that for a lot of Americans that read those articles and say, well, Obama did it. Why did they put the guy that did it on the cover of Wired? By the way, the person who whistleblowed that after the 2016 election, everybody was getting weird, was somebody that worked on the Obama staff and said, we did all this plus more. Why is anybody freaking out? That didn't get almost a single article written about it.
Well, it's gotten some coverage, and we're certainly going to cover that. But I think that regardless of it being Obama, that's your theory about it. It's still the company was giving out that data without users knowing about
I
it.
agree. Yeah, it sounds like it. I wasn't party to either. From what it seems like the outside was, Facebook made a mistake, and they tried to fix it. They knew they shouldn't have shared that much data, and they've been trying to fix it ever since. They tried to go out and get rid of everybody's data that had done it. And I think, look, I don't defend either group. I don't defend Obama or Cambridge Analytica. They both, and if they used it in an improper way, either of them, then that's wrong. If they broke the terms and conditions with Facebook should deal with them. I didn't use it. It didn't have any party with me. I didn't ask for it, and I had nothing to do with it.
Do you think Facebook's been a responsible company?
It's a tough one. I think Facebook has done a lot of things to try to make a lot of money.
And you're happy in 2020 to give them more money,
Well, it's likely if that's where people's eyeballs are.
even though they haven't necessarily been totally.
I think they're making the changes now. I think there's a lot. You asked me ever. You said have they ever? I would say that they probably had some issues back in the day. I think they were a young company that was growing fast, and I think they also sometimes tech and all these things run into each other. I think right now they're doing everything they can, and if they're smart, they're going to make sure that they make the most ethical platform they can. But I also think that's a thin line to go into censorship, restriction, and try to be police. And I think right now you have YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook almost trying to join together and see if they can create what's conversational health. And I don't think I want them to create my conversational health. My conversation might not be the same and agree with you politically. I imagine you and I sit here today have completely different political. But do you want someone to actually regulate what I say to you? No. And I don't want them to regulate what you say to me either. I only, there are certain things that need to be protected against, but blocking conservative views is not one of them. And if I believe that, God has a place in my life, then I'm not wrong for saying that. If I believe...
I don't think they're blocking content like that.
Yeah, they are. They've blocked a lot of people's content, stuff like that. I have had multiple people send me their accounts blocked, show me the post, and the post was a religious post that they believed was hate speech. And in my view, there was nothing hate about it. And I think that that's wrong. I think that a lot of people have different views in this country in different ways.
How confident are you that the 2016 midterm elections, right? Facebook still a main place for advertising, still a main place for content for American voters. Do you feel any more confident that American voters are protected from disinformation and misinformation on Facebook?
No, first of all, every voter in this country should recognize that their neighbor might come tell them something that's wrong. They should judge everything with their own mind, and they should make their own decisions, and they should do their own research. They should believe all things, including mass media, with skepticism, and they should think themselves and make a decision based off that. I think that's been around for as long as mankind's existed. And the thing that somehow 10 years ago we were getting perfect information and today we're not is just a falsehood. Look, it goes back to my argument again that there's nothing better than the left would like to do right now is to make you think that all these platforms and all this information is wrong.
I don't think anyone's trying to. That's a big statement. All right, I'm talking about the fact that there's undoubtedly Facebook has become a primary information source for American voters. It was a place that was taken advantage of in 2016.
It's an aggregator.
And it was taken advantage of in 2016 by bad actors to spread false narratives and divisive content to American voters.
Do you think any false information was spread by mail, phones, or TV?
Of course. But what I'm saying is that mail phones and TV were different media. There's one major medium right now.
I would still say TV is bigger than Facebook.
It still is?
Yeah. We spent more money on TV. TV advertising still trumps it. Pun intended.
Maybe an ad.
Ad and media. I would still say TV news still dominates written news. Ask the TV people are making a lot more money than the written people. So TV still dominates. So to say it's the biggest is just, I think, a false statement.
No, Pew.
I think it's number 2.
There have been studies about what the information sources for American voters.
I still think TV won. I think it was still like 60-some%.
All right. That being said, 2018 midterms, right?
Yes.
Are the American voters in any better place when it comes to Facebook? Do you think that
They probably will be. It'll be better in a place than they are from CNN.
From what? What does that mean?
Just meaning that the information they're getting from opinion and commentary on TV is much more false and based with bias than anything that I see that they're getting right now. I think the written media is almost doing better.
What about protection from foreign actors that are trying to interfere with our...
Well, I hope that they can... Look, I think that's a pretty easy one to block. I think they just do verified ad buyers. I don't know why they can't... Any political ad has to have a verified ad buyer. We're all registered FEC advertisers. Why not? You can only buy political ads if you're registered with the FEC. I don't know. That one seems like cakewalk.
Right, but a lot of people are going to social media, like Facebook for their news and to kind of learn about what's going on in the world.
Well, the main news outlets should do a better job of posting real news, and people would believe that and read that more.
And what does that mean, do a better job? I mean, they're competing in that
journalist- if the
ecosystem with
journalist
all
would
of this
post-
fake stuff that gets...
I think if journalists would post more news and less commentary, people would take it as more news.
But do you not see the irony there that on Facebook, opinion sells better than news?
Well, I've never seen data to say that. I still think a really well-written news article goes very viral.
It doesn't sell as well as opinion does. I think that in terms of appealing to what people's preferences are and preference
maybe opinion
bubbles
does
and
more.
things,
Yeah, maybe
right? So I
opinion
mean,
more.
it's an engagement machine.
then
It's not about...
But then they should do a better job on those pages to say this is opinion, and not sell it like it's news.
I mean, if they're... So, all right. I mean, but do you think that sites like Facebook have in any way exacerbated a sort of post-truth world that we're living in, where, I mean...
I think it's no different than every church on Sunday afterwards. All those people going in there and speaking. If they're not on Facebook, they're going to go talk to their neighbors. Like, yeah, it's how we've communicated for thousands of years. We've talked to each other, and we've given ourselves opinions, and we've done things. Our job as humans is to say, did my neighbor just tell me the truth or not? And I don't know. I mean, I just don't think any platform is going to be able to regulate what is true and not true.
What about playing up divisive content?
I mean, are we going to start having panels where the judge and jury is determining every news article whether it's true or not?
What about divisive content, though? I mean, what about the idea that...
Well, again, is who's making it decisive? Who's the judge and jury for that?
That divisive content plays well on social media.
Who decides what's decisive?
Well, the folks that are writing the algorithms that are saying...
Exactly. So you're saying that they have the right, you want them to be judge and jury.
I'm just saying that I'm wondering, right? I mean, you're going to be running Donald Trump's campaign, President Trump's campaign in 2020, right? And divisive content does very well on social media, right? Does it not?
If you showed me a data that says, as I imagine it, anything that's alarming would do well.
So do you play into that?
No, I don't think we do.
Does the president not play into that in terms of his messaging?
No, I think he says what he feels. I think he's given his opinion. I think he's trying to fight for this country. But again, that's who's judge and jury what decisive is. I don't think it is. You might. I don't take it as misinformation. It doesn't hurt me.
Well, calling the press the enemy of the people.
I believe it is right now.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yes, I believe what they have done is...
Do you think what I'm doing right now is...
Look, I think you take the media as a whole. Are there good actors within it? Yes. Are there people that their entire attention is every day is to take us down and use large name outlets to do so? 100%. And they write it like news. Single sources over and over again. Even single sources. They make up sources. And I've seen it time and time and time. I've been in meetings.
Let me ask you this. That's name calling. The enemy of the people is a pretty bold statement say about the free press in this country, right? Do you not think that in any way that's incendiary?
No.
How is that not incendiary? You're calling the free press.
They call him every day the enemy of the people.
They do not.
Oh my goodness. I can name 1,000 articles. I can name 1,000 articles that show you where they say that Donald Trump has ruined the country, he's ruined the world, he's ruined everybody in America. They do that all day, every day, unrelentlessly to him. They have made the news their opinion.
He's the president of the United States.
They've made the news their opinion. Look, let's go back to Obama, Bush, let's go back to all of them. It's nothing close.
I think that those were presidents, whether it's Bush or Obama, it's not a partisan issue, that appreciated what the press scrutiny meant.
I don't know.
I don't know.
This president on the first day was completely treated in a different way. And, what Jim Acosta does by yelling, Then
don't you rise up against that, above that? Don't you rise up as president and not start calling the press?
Well, that's the president's choice.
Right.
You'd have to ask him that question.
Fair enough. But in 2020, when you're running that campaign, is it going to be a campaign that is incendiary where
No, it's a campaign we're fighting for the American people.
And you think that calling the press the enemy of the people is fighting for the American people?
Yes.
How?
I just said it. Because they spread false information and stories to make money.
It doesn't
And to try to
augment
and push their-
divisions. It doesn't try to.
It tries to push, yes, they're trying to push their liberal agenda through their power. They have the power of narrative, they have the power of connections. And they try to spread their liberal message through their stories by making it look like news and trying to slide commentary and news into a single item.
But news, it's painting with a pretty broad brush. There's plenty of news, there's plenty of legitimate
Yeah,
reporting
exactly.
that we in the news
And,
media do.
and you have 3/4 facts and you have opinion written around it.
I mean, based on what? What are you
Based
talking
on every,
about?
I don't know, all the news articles I read every day. You can see it. They wrap around. They give their opinion to what their facts are.
So who do you trust? Who's a media outlet that you actually trust?
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and name which to trust. There are reporters and there are outlets I think that do a decent job. I think there is other ones that have completely and 100% have used this as their goal.
So who? I mean, you can't.
I'm not going to sit here and name names. I'm not going to do that.
But if you're not going to sit here and name names, then you're
Well, it's
going
just not my place to do. I don't want to do that. That's not my job. If the president of the United States chooses to do that, he can do that. I'm just saying that I believe the media is not on the side of the American people right now. They're on the side of a certain portion of the American people they see. We sit on two different sides. I believe the media created the decisiveness. You believe Donald Trump created the decisiveness. So the fight's there. I just believe the media could literally stop trying to tell people how it should be.
I get it. You're saying that.
I'm just saying that
has always
divisiveness
been there.
existed.
Yeah, of course it's existed.
Yeah. Well, you said that social media was creating decisiveness.
No. I'm saying whether it's amplifying it, whether it's actually
Speeding it up.
And well, it's.
I would say speeding it up.
You would say speeding it up.
I would say the messages go faster. I would say every technology change we've had has gotten things faster. When
Right.
people started getting mail, it was faster than someone delivering, parchment paper, right? Who knows what? The phone call made it faster than mail. TV made it faster than mail. All these technologies have just made it faster.
Mm-hmm.
But to make the argument that the message that somehow now there's something new and fake in it is what I would agree. Someone could have called, and the wire could have been just as fake back then from a fake story. It just got to you faster.
Right, but what I'm also saying is that the algorithm.
Now I do think that they can influence things with the algorithm.
And so, what plays with the algorithm? What is
I
engaging?
think Facebook, Twitter, YouTube all have played with the algorithm to make it more biased against conservatives.
Do you have any proof of that?
Do I have an actual physical proof of the code? No.
I mean, I would say that
It is a possibly anecdotal, position on my part to say so, but I have a lot of them, and I would tell you that it appears on my part that they have monitored and changed the algorithm to what they think is cutting out fake news by changing out messages for what the main complaint of their people are, which are liberals that make those complaints of what they need to get rid of. And I think by the sequester of and the push down of certain types of content, which some of it might be accurate, it has on the fringes taken down things which are not that way and that are just conservative messages, because it is hard to use an algorithm and words and just technology to just to brushstroke everyone into a single category.
I mean, the people that work at places like Facebook will tell you that their algorithm rewards emotion, an emotional reaction. Things that garner an emotional reaction that get you to click, get you to share.
Maybe the conservatives click on things more because they're so happy they finally see someone say something that the mass media won't. And maybe your reaction is misread, that you think the reaction is negative. Maybe the reaction is they're actually happy. Maybe they're finally happy that someone says something that hasn't gotten out there. Maybe they feel pain because their job and no one's cared about it for 10 years. Maybe they're upset that their kids don't have the opportunity of other kids in other major cities who get programs handed to them. Maybe they're upset that they can't make their next car payment. Maybe they're upset that they feel that an immigrant has taken their job, an illegal alien has taken their job. Maybe they have a lot of things to be upset about with. And maybe when someone says those things they care about, maybe they're excited about them. Now to say that,
or maybe they're angry.
They're
about
emotional about them. Maybe they're emotional about them.
Yeah.
But to determine an algorithm that takes a conservative value and lump it into an emotion and say, well, because they're emotional about it means it's wrong, it's not right.
No, I'm not saying that the algorithm is weighted that way toward conservative or otherwise.
Well, you just said it was weighted towards emotion.
No, I'm saying it's weighted toward emotion. But emotion doesn't have a partisan bent.
That's what I'm saying is you can't use an algorithm. You can't weed out fake news by emotion.
No, but what I'm saying is that if the messaging of the Trump campaign, whether it be in 2016 or in 2020, is one that plays upon emotions, that is one that is.
Wait, hold on. All politics are about people and their emotions. I mean, Trump campaign doesn't do anything any other campaign does. Yes, do we care about the emotions of the people who vote for us and we want to see them have a better life? Yeah, That's a odd statement. You don't think Hillary Clinton wanted to make people feel very excited and hopeful for her? You don't think Obama wanted to bring hope and change? What is hope and change? Hope is the word of emotion, right? That's an emotion, right? That was the key word of his campaign was hope, right? Isn't that emotion?
What emotion do you think the term enemy of the people engenders? When you say that and you call the press that, what emotion does that engender in the listener?
I would imagine it'd be angry. And I would think they should be angry that the media for using commentary and opinion and trying to sell it like news. And I hope that what the media gets out of this is that they should go back to being journalists.
Okay. Well, describe for me the evolution that happened.
Have you ever had 1,000 fake stories written about you?
I have not, no.
Have you been called a misogynist, a racist, a pig, and every other word in the world by journalists?
I have not, no.
Okay, well, that's what happens to our side every day. Journalists will say, make up things. You asked me earlier whether or not that whole thing about the African American vote, whether I'd done it and everything. Now that writer decided to take a fake anonymous source, put it right after a sentence with me, right after my name. Now, those are the things that I'm talking about. Journalists playing games with words and doing things to incite a feeling or emotion towards us because they don't agree with the movement. I get that every day. And people on our campaign every day get inundated with fake stories and fake sources because these journalists feel it's their mission to take us down. And so if you don't think that's an enemy to us, it is.
What emotion were you trying to incite in the 2016 election?
Excitement that change was coming.
Something on Facebook dramatically changed between 2012 and the 2016 election.
There's just more people.
The ad targeting got much, much better. So
Yeah, but the ad targeting, what you're talking about, two completely different
I
things.
don't understand
Remember,
that,
ad
actually.
targeting was only done for two things. We only use ad targeting for mainly two things, and this is another big misconception. You can put this in your thing. We mainly use ad targeting for fundraising and GOTV, not persuasion. We ran very, very little money for persuasion.
And what's that mean?
So you have three types of ads. One, we got to raise money, right, to pay all the bills. Two, we got to get people to show up. And three, you try to persuade someone to vote for Donald Trump.
Or to dissuade someone from voting for
That could be
Hillary
anything,
Clinton.
persuasion, dissuasion. We ran extremely minuscule amount of money into persuasion. I would say out of $90 million, less than $1 million maybe, into persuasion. Most of our ads money was focused on GOTV, which is getting out our vote and raising money. So the thought process you're saying here is that customized had effect on persuasion is just not, is false. I don't know if I've proven that you can actually show an ad on Facebook and change someone's mind. I haven't seen data to show that I could do that.
Would Donald Trump have been president if it were not for Facebook?
Oh my God, now you're asking me to guess. I think so. I think those voices would have been on TV and then I would still found them. So to say that if they weren't on Facebook, their eyeballs would have been all at home, reading books and, staring at the backyard. No, I think the only thing that's happened is they've moved their eyeballs from TV or newspapers to Facebook. So we would have bought the same types of ads in Facebook and TV, and I think he'd have still been president. The difference is possibly the rural voter that maybe you can't buy as much TV or get to the newspapers. That would have been the question. Without Facebook, could we have gotten to the rural voter? Would we afford enough mail to get out to all of them? And could we have done it enough? That would have been the real question. Could we have? Yes. Could we have done with the amount of money? That's the real question.
So how instrumental was Facebook to...
Facebook was important. I've already said it was a 500-pound gorilla of our fundraising campaign to do it. But Donald Trump won this campaign. Don't think Facebook won this campaign or I won this campaign. Or Jared Kushner or anybody. Trump won this campaign. 99.9% of it, all that work. The last part was just delivering his message. I didn't make his message. He made his message. It was these people. A lot of people dictate, did the movement make him or he made the movement? And they were ready for each other.